It can change the way people think, respond, and act and behave. So, for example, I work with athletes. If someone's nervous before a cup final or a big sporting event, NLP's got a series of tools that can help people to change their responses.
Okay, so welcome to the Success Mindset YouTube channel. Today we're joined by Jeremy Lazarus. Welcome, Jeremy.
Great to be here. Thanks, Damien.
Thank you very much for joining us today. So I'm just going to go through Jeremy's resume, which is very impressive, I have to say. So Jeremy is an accredited master coach, executive coach, ILM approved coach trainer and a certified NLP master trainer. Prior to becoming a business coach and trainer in 1999, he's had 18 years experience as a senior finance professional and management consultant, including being finance director of Yo Sushi. He's a qualified accountant and qualified corporate treasurer as well. Jeremy's clients include blue chips, SMEs, several NHS trusts, charities and elite athletes. He's a guest lecturer at UK universities and has written 4 best-selling books and has just actually started writing his 5th, and we'll talk to Jeremy about that in a minute. As well as having several coaching qualifications, including a master's, and he also assesses coaching applications for the Association of Coaching. He's a keen interest in sport and was a semi-professional footballer for 14 years. That's quite a resume, Jeremy. What's the final time?
Not bad. I'm only 21 as well.
Thank you so much for joining us today. And just to give a bit more background on you, so you're writing a 5th book. Can you just tell us a little bit about that and what that's going to be around?
Sure. So this is going to be around the mindset for success. So I've been training for 21 years, and this topic, the mindset for success, is probably the one that makes the biggest impact on my clients and my students. So it's not going to be a big book by any means. It'll probably be 40, 50 pages, something like that. So it's more of a booklet, but it's going to be very, very focused and very practical.
Fantastic. That's really good. And today in this video, we're going to be talking about NLP. So you're going to be doing a few videos for the channel, which is absolutely amazing. And today we're going to be looking at understanding of NLP.
Sure.
So for anyone, obviously I've known about NLP for years and I've practiced various parts of it, but for anyone that doesn't know what NLP is, how would you describe it?
Okay, so I'll describe it in a reasonably official way, then the way that I normally describe it to my clients. So NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. Neuro-linguistic is the language of your mind, and the programming is, if you like, think of it as patterns of behavior. So we've all got patterns of behavior. Most of them are useful and some of them may not be. And so if we've got patterns of behavior which aren't useful, we can use NLP to change the patterns of behavior. For example, if somebody, when they drive down the road, if somebody cuts in front of them, they get angry, that's a pattern of behavior. Getting nervous before an interview is a pattern of behavior. So NLP can help people to change the way they think. And I guess given my background as an accountant and an ex-semi-pro footballer, I'm interested in results and benefits. And for me, NLP can be defined as a series of tools, techniques, approaches, and attitudes with 3 key benefits. The first is that it helps to improve communication. So whether that's communication between 2 people or the way we communicate with ourselves. If anyone's sitting there watching this thinking, I don't communicate with myself, they're just communicating with themselves. So it improves communication. Secondly, it can change the way people think, respond, and act and behave. So, for example, I work with athletes. If someone's nervous before a cup final or a big sporting event, NLP's got a series of tools that can help people to change their responses. So communication is 1, changing the way people think, respond, and act is 2, and the third benefit is to help people to replicate excellence. In NLP, we call it modeling. So whether that's replicating someone else's excellence, or people can replicate their own excellence. For example, if they're brilliant at presenting to 5 people, but they get nervous presenting to 50, what they're doing here, which if they replicated it with the 50, would make a difference.
Yeah,
that's what NLP. It helps people to get better results faster.
Absolutely. And I remember from my own experience, Jeremy, thinking back to when I was young, and I was often told that, I was no good or that I wouldn't amount to anything from various people, and you kind of get this instilled in your head. And NLP really helped me. You know, I use sort of reframing techniques, different stuff like that to really re-engage and reframe my patterns of thinking in my head. And you know, so I think that's really great. And anyone watching this, let's say, for example, someone's watching this that has a specific barrier. Let's say a barrier of actually just taking action. It could be action in any regard. If someone has that kind of barrier, what kind of things, how might NLP help them in that regard?
Okay. So, I mean, I think it depends. The reason someone is not taking a barrier, there could be different reasons. It could be that the thing they say they want isn't really motivating enough. So it could be about motivation, or they're setting goals that they don't really want to achieve, or it could be someone else's goals as opposed to theirs. It could be that someone has a limiting belief. So you just mentioned you told you weren't good enough. And by the way, well done you for addressing it. If someone's got a limiting belief, well, NLP's got a whole series of techniques that can help people to change their limiting beliefs. In terms of if it's a lack of motivation, NLP's got approaches to find out what really motivates someone and help them to have more of that and less of what they don't want. So does that give you an answer as to some of the things that NLP could offer there, or do you want some more detail?
Absolutely. Okay. And I guess my next question was going to be, you know, depending on where you go on the internet, and I mean, I'm signed up. I've drunk the Kool-Aid of NLP, and I love it, and you know I love it because we've talked before about it. Yeah. But you know, there have been mixed reviews, and some people almost see NLP maybe as a faux science or a faux approach, and there have been mixed reviews on NLP. And what would you say to people that might think that way? Why do you think people have that understanding or thinking?
All right. So I'm going to be a bit controversial now, okay? And I'm going to say that NLP is absolutely useless and doesn't work, but quality NLP works brilliantly.
Yeah.
And I think one of the challenges we as a field face is that because it's in most countries not regulated, you'll have two different people, for example, offering what they call NLP. One may have done an online course or read a book and they think they're an NLP practitioner, and someone else may have done a proper, fully accredited, fully assessed training and does it properly. So I think that's one of the problems, that because at the moment there are no standards, or no enforceable standards, I should say, that you'll get a mixed bag of trainers, and therefore practitioners. And what I would say with that also is that there are moves, in fact, very recently, there's been a UK university which has it's created like a master's degree, basically, which is NLP based. So certain quality NLP practitioner, master practitioner courses count for credits for a master's degree. And there have been other universities over the years that have done that. So for the people who study with those kind of training organizations that are recognized by the universities, they're going to get good levels of training.
Fantastic. So, well, I guess it's like anything, Jeremy, isn't it? It's, you know, if you've got someone that isn't a good proponent, isn't a good practitioner of anything, it's going to be of a poor standard, isn't it?
Exactly. And my old profession, accountancy, you know, listen, there are good accountants and not good accountants. Yeah. You name it, doctors, police, you just name it. It's the same in every area. Most of the recognized professions do have quality control, though. That's the thing. Whereas NLP, it's a bit patchy, shall we say.
Yeah, no, that makes absolute sense. And then I guess, you know, people watching this, one of the key things about this this channel is that people can get some tangible takeaways from it to put into practice. So what are some of the most useful NLP techniques in your mind, and what takeaways might there be for people watching it?
So how long do we have here, Damien? A few hours, do we? Yeah, okay. So, all right, some key things. One of which is, I think, a starting point is to have what I call the mindset for success, to have positive beliefs. And there are a set of, there are a set of beliefs and attitudes which help people and it forms a foundation, I think, of success. Once you've got a really positive and appropriate attitude, then there are some techniques. One of my favorite techniques is something called perceptual positions. Perceptual positions is about putting yourself in someone else's shoes or seeing different perspectives. So, for example, if someone wants, in the business world, if someone has got a meeting with a prospective client, if they can truly put themselves before the meeting in the mindset of the client, think, well, what would I, if I were the client, what would I want from the salesperson walking into the room? What wouldn't I want? And then maybe that we call that position 2, to take in. The second position is the other person involved. The third position, a third perspective, would be a neutral observer. So what if a neutral observer was advising, what would he or she advise? And then taking that information back into what we call first position, the salesperson, so that he or she can be better informed and better prepared. So perceptual positions is really useful. I could spend hours on that. I think another key one is the idea of values. So values is about what motivates someone, what's important to them in any context. So it could be sort of in a life context. It could also be, if you're selling, for example, what's important to you in a pair of shoes. If I'm a salesperson selling shoes and you come into my shop, if I find out what's important to you, what you want in a pair of shoes, it's going to help me to understand you better. And if I can offer you a pair of shoes that fits your requirements, then it makes it easier for me to sell. And that's relevant, I think, in all forms of communication and influencing. If you can understand what's important to someone else, you can communicate in terms of their values and what's important to them, as opposed to what's important, to, let's say, me. It's what's important to the other person that counts.
And funny you talk about perceptual positions, because I've used that before in negotiation.
Yeah.
And it's really powerful. When you're doing the role play before negotiation, it's really powerful because you get the subjective view of yourself where you write down what you want. You get the subjective view of the other person when you take position 2. Yeah. And then when you come in as neutral observer, you're getting that objective stance, aren't you? Yes. And it's really powerful. And when we used perceptual positions before, we were looking at that and the Nash equilibrium, which is the sort of zero-sum game stuff that, the person gets out of it as much as you get out of it. You both get what you want out of the transaction. Yeah. And it becomes it's a really, really powerful technique. Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. Yeah. Very good.
And also, I use it a lot when I coach someone. So sometimes people, I'm asking someone, what do you think you could do about a particular situation? They give me 2 or 3 answers. I say, well, what else? Oh, I don't know. And I say, okay, imagine someone over there was in a similar situation to you. What advice would you give him or her? Yeah. So in effect, I'm putting them into position 3, advising someone else. And it's amazing how many times people from this position 3 or neutral observer advising someone else, they always come up with some really good ideas.
I think the viewers will have a lot to take away from that. So thank you so much, Jeremy, for joining us for this segment. I know we're going to be talking about other segments in other videos, but thank you so much for joining us today for that. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And like we always sign off on the videos here, make your life a masterpiece, my friends. Go out and execute. Make sure you do what you've got to do. Thank you so much to Jeremy for joining us. Thank you.
Pleasure.